Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of The Music Show. I'm your host, Dickson. Today I'm coming to you live from Simi Valley, California at the Skatelab. I'm sitting down with Scott Radinsky, the owner of the Skatelab, singer of the punk rock band Pulley, and the bullpen coach of the Anaheim Angels. Scott, thanks so very much for having me out. This place is amazing.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
This isn't a skate park. This is a museum.
Sometimes it is. Depends how you see it.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a lot of collections in there.
First and foremost, let me start out by just saying thank you very much. It's a real honor to come down here and sit with you and pick at your brain and talk music. I know you're a busy guy, and you were going to actually come on down to our radio station. And actually, I'm kind of happier that I came down here because I'm a big skateboarder. I'm a big fan of skateboarding. And so we'll just dive right into things. When putting together a skate park such as this one, how much time goes into the design, the layout, where you're going to have your transitions, where you're going to have the bowl? What made you, was a Hall of Fame always something that was from day one you were going to do that, or did we just start out as just a regular skate park?
It all originated, we played a gig in Fresno, a place called Sugar Hill Skate Park, and I was blown away with the whole concept. And I hadn't seen an indoor park. There really wasn't. This was, middle 90s. Didn't really see too many indoor parks that were public. And so we played this gig. It was a skate park by day, club by night, went off, was awesome. I came home and I was super hyped and had a friend who had a collection of some boards in his garage, a few boards hanging on the walls. And I said, I want to open a skate park, and he wanted to have a place to hang the boards. And it kind of started that way, and then, over the course of 9 months, working with the city, going through all the permits and all that, finding a place to build it. We had a guy in mind, a guy out of Florida named Tim Payne. He has a ramp building company called Team Payne. And if I remember right, we had maybe 8 local kids that were friends of ours that were kind of working for nothing. It was going to be like, hey, you can skate for free. And they all showed up one day when Tim's crew got here. He had a big 4x8 sheet of plywood, and he basically said, what do we build? And so it was all these guys sitting down, looked like we were in a classroom, and he was at the front of the class with the 4x8 sheet of plywood, and there was thought that went into it, and he diagrammed everything, and the wood came, and that was kind of how the thought came. I mean, we really didn't know until we got there and did it.
Right.
Yeah.
Kind of like, I see kind of like some of these setups. I mean, it's probably almost something similar to something like this before you actually break ground and actually get into.
Well, we just hand drew it.
Yeah.
I mean, we didn't make it.
Is there a committee of people, or just you and him?
These 8 kids.
That's it.
That helped us, local skater guys that were going to hammer nails and hump plywood, and they were doing that for the opportunity to skate for free.
Right.
And Tim's crew, he had 2 or 3 guys that came with him, and they kind of led the whole thing. And we just went to town, and he just kind of ordered us around.
It's pretty cool because I've been a big fan of skateboarding, and I still skate. Nowhere near like I did back in the day, but I took a little time off from skating, had a family, and then I got back into it, and these skate parks all started popping up all around Southern California. And I started thinking, oh, these are great, we could go skate here. I grew up in ditches, launch ramps, I was a big street skater. Some of the decks around here, Not As Compass, Kendall, Tommy Guerrero, a lot of the guys I really looked up to as street skaters. Freddie Smith, one of my favorites. And I started going to these skate parks, and I said, you practically got to be pro to ride here. Like, they were all, the rails were high, the bowls were deep, the transitions were extreme, a lot of vert. It just seemed very scary, and it seemed like, wow, this isn't something that I'm used to. And I kind of noticed when you were giving us a tour here at the Skatelab today that it's almost kind of set up like a beginner, intermediate, advanced. So if you're not a real advanced skater, you could still come here to the Skatelab and have a great time.
Yeah, for sure. And you know, it's evolved into this because when we first, the original setup, I mean, we had, you know, like a 20-foot vert wall, and you know, we've always had the bowl. There was a 6-foot mini ramp. It was a little more catered to transition.
Sure.
And like you're saying, that late 80s, early 90s, it was kind of all they were doing. All you were just ollie off of, you know,
Right.
over things, and that's
That was
kind of
it.
what it was. And,
Right.
and we kind of, I think in the beginning we went a little too big because if you can't drop in, you can't really enjoy a skate park.
I didn't drop it until I was in my mid-30s.
Yeah. So you can go bounce around all over the flat ground
Sure.
and do your tricks,
Right.
but you can't skate a skate park, and,
Right.
and you have to be able to drop in.
Right.
So I think once the kids get over the fear of that, they can skate anywhere. But yeah,
Sure.
there's larger, smaller throughout the course, and there's areas. There's a couple outdoor ramps on each side of the building that are even smaller.
Right.
But yeah, I think kids find where to start off at for sure.
Yeah, it's cool because my co-host on my radio show, Alan Losi, you know, we've had, like I elaborated earlier, Caballero, Hosoi, some, you know, Tommy Guerrero, some of the best skaters in the world
Yeah.
on our show. And, you know, I've always kind of talked to them about the whole skate park. And it's funny how you bring up the dropping in thing because they touch on that too. It's a big thing. And, you know, even skateboards changing from, you know, the 10-inch decks down to the 8s and the 9s and the popsicle boards, which when in the 80s when Mullen was riding, those were kind of considered freestyle boards.
Yeah.
And now they're just a tad bit bigger and all the pros are riding them. So it was a big change, not only in the decks, but also in the skate parks. Because you're right, you had to be able to drop in. And then another thing that you were talking about too earlier was the scooters.
Yeah.
You know, now you have a ton of scooters at these skate parks, and it's crazy because, you know, I'll go to a skate park and I try to get there early before the shredders come in. But sometimes, you know, the parents getting up at 6 a.m., 7 a.m., getting the kids a donut, heading down to the park, and they're buried in their phone, and their kids rolling in on a razor as I'm rolling in somewhere else. And I mean, there's going to be collisions,
Yeah.
you know, so it's kind of cool here. Like, I like the way you worded it earlier, kind of the Chuck E. Cheese
Yeah.
of the skate parks. And, you know, this place is amazing.
We like to think of it more as like we teach skateboarding.
Sure.
You know, if
Yeah.
you rip, you know when to show up.
Exactly.
But if you're not going to come on a Saturday and a Sunday morning if you don't want to deal with a bunch of little drums.
Yeah. Well, mad props and lots of respect to you for this. If you're ever in Simi Valley, definitely stop by the Skatelab and check this place out. You don't even have to be a skateboarder to come in and appreciate it. I mean, there's some, you know, artwork and pictures and decks and memorabilia that will just blow your mind here. So yeah, this place again, it's awesome.
Thank you very much.
And that's from the bottom of my heart. I'm a big, you know, I'm not an athlete by any means. You know, skateboarding's always kind of been my thing, and so this place really hits home for me.
It's labor of love,
Yeah.
man. It's core is poor. So we do it for the passion, and we enjoy what we do, and this is our contribution to giving back to our city.
Well, thank
These
you.
kids, so.
I mean, and you've always stayed in the city that you're from.
Well, I grew up around here, and I currently live here and don't see myself leaving anytime soon. So
Yeah, stay where you're appreciated, not where you're tolerated.
yeah, I guess.
Right?
Yeah.
Let's talk about Pulley.
All right.
Something I know quite a bit about. You know, skateboarding and music is kind of my forte. The whole reason I started the music show with Kaotic Radio was, like we were talking earlier, is my music show is kind of diverse, if you will. I play everything from old 70s classic rock to metal to new wave to punk to ska to hip hop. I'm a big fan of music. I started the music show because I felt that the way terrestrial radio and even satellite radio was going, but more so terrestrial radio, that a lot of songs and bands were forgotten about. Songs weren't played anymore. I wanted to start a music show to where the kid could hear his punk rock song in the car, and then the mom or dad could hear a song that, you know, brings them back to the 60s, 70s, or 80s. So, you know, punk rock is very close and dear to my heart. As I told you earlier, I didn't really get into punk rock until probably the mid-90s. The whole Epitaph Fat Records thing is when I really gravitated towards the bands on Epitaph, Pulley being one of them, Guttermouth. No Effects wasn't on Epitaph, but, you know, Pennywise, Bad Religion, Descendants, those are the bands that really, you know, and I think it was more so because I came from kind of a metal background that I really liked those bands a little bit more so than the first generation punk rock, because I thought like even like with Fletcher Drag or El Jefe, there was a little bit better guitar playing.
It all got better.
The singing, such as your voice, everything was better. So they were like more accomplished musicians. So Pulley came on the scene in what, 94?
Yeah, winter of 94, 95.
6 studio albums?
There's a few more, but not full
Some
albums.
EPs and whatnot.
Yeah.
And then you also had affiliations singing with 10 Foot Pole.
Yes, correct.
Now, if I memory serves me correct, 10 Foot Pole, that was a huge name back in the 90s. That name was on every flyer out there. I remember 10 Foot Pole, Lagwagon, Unwritten Law, all those bands were bands that were huge back then.
The timing was like perfect.
Right.
The name change of the band, the growth of it, signing to Epitaph, putting out the first record, everything the moons were aligned. And, we had been a band for 10 years previous to that, the same numbers. And, all of a sudden now it's like, wow, hey, check it out. We could do this, we could do that. And I graduated on a Friday in 1986 from high school. And the following Saturday, I was on a plane and started professional baseball.
With the White Sox.
Correct. So this was, 8-10 years had been going on. This was my lifestyle, and this is what we did. The band was up, guys had their jobs. We'd come home in the winter, we'd do our thing. It was fun. But things started to get a little better. We got better, like you were saying. The musicianship got better. Times were changing, and we kind of were right there at the right time. And I think they just felt the need to continue on, and they wanted to go for it because the opportunities were there. And I would say I probably went as far as begging, but I went to the point of like, I just think it's a mistake. We've done this for 10 years. This is the way it's been. We finally got an opportunity. We're going to piss it away. And I mean, it was more like me thinking we were going to piss it away. They kind of had in mind what they were going to do. And they just chose to continue on. And I think 2 days later we started Pulley. And it was the best move ever.
How did Pulley get recognized and brought to Epitaph Record? Who discovered you guys?
We had just done the 10 Foot Pole record, and I remember like making a phone call to Brett saying, how did I get kicked out of my own band? And he laughed, and he said, well, I just got kicked out of Bad Religion. He goes, just send me some songs. We're all good.
How did you even have his number?
Well, I just put a record out on his label.
Oh, 10 Foot Pole.
Correct, 10 Foot Pole,
Okay.
correct. And I made the connection with 10 Foot Pole with Brett and made that whole thing happen. And then months later, I'm being booted. And I called him and said, what's going on? And how can this happen? And he just said, put some songs together and demo. 2 weeks later, we put some songs together and recorded a record like 2 months later. So the momentum never stopped. Right. We just had to basically change the name. And for me, it was, like I said, a good thing because I was able to pick the phone up and call my friends and say, you guys want to do this? Right. You know the situation. I mean, my time schedule. Right. And everybody was totally cool. And I just think that there was a point in 10 Foot Pole when their eyes got really big, and I think they thought like, well, we're going to be Pennywise. And I just don't think it was ever destined for that. Right. But I think it could have been pretty good if it was continued to stay together. But it is what it is.
10 Foot Pole was a very accomplished band in the 90s. There was a lot of, there was a good draw for that band, and I remember the flyers, and I remember 10 Foot Pole being on a lot of kick-ass shows. Your voice is so dynamic. Your highs, your lows, you got range. Were you always gifted with a good voice? I mean, you got a great voice, and I gotta just emphasize on that because, I'm all about singers. I sing in a punk rock band, but I sing nowhere near the way you sing. I don't have those dynamics, those harmonies. I've gotten better, but I listen to guys like you, especially you, and I've been, doing research and listening to more of the Pulley stuff lately because I knew I was going to sit down with you. Your voice, I just wanted to give you a big compliment on that because you got a great voice. And do you work at it? How do you take care of that instrument?
Well, first, thank you. My voice goes back to '84 being on record, so
yeah.
I dare you to listen to that and tell me that's your voice. It's an instrument, right?
Yeah.
And I've never been a cigarette smoker. Never really hammered myself too hard. Been fortunate to stay in shape. And I think that, you know, keeping that together, keeping your wind, you know, your pipes together, your lung capacity allows you to be able to grow and be able to get better, because it's a muscle, right?
Sure.
And the more you can strengthen everything around it, the easier it's going to be to strengthen that. And understanding what you can and can't do.
Sure.
There's been so many times where what I thought sounded cool at practice, as soon as you get under the microscope in the studio, you realize, man, the pronunciation, or I can't use those words, it just sounds horrible, and you figure it out, you know, over time. And I think that's why some people, like, you always hear, I used to like the old stuff, it was more raw. Well, obviously it gets better as you go, and you learn how to do more stuff. You learn how to harmonize, you learn how to add second vocals and do things that you wouldn't normally do in the beginning, because either you were limited because of time, money, the restraints, you know,
right.
to do all that. Yeah. Now you just know how to do it. And
right.
Pre-production with the opportunity to, you know, when I first started doing this, it was maybe record a cassette tape live on a boombox, go home and listen to that and try to scratch words to it. And then it got down to a 4-track where I was actually able to sing into a machine and hear my voice. And now it's the computer. Yeah. So I can have 80,000, I can experiment with 100 things before I go in the studio instead of wasting time.
Right. And
that just allows you to have, I think, better performance.
The pre-production.
Yeah. And it's like anything. I mean, I do think you get better with time and experience, and you mature and you figure out kind of where your niche is and where you want to go with it. And like I said, stay within that realm. And if you don't, I'm not afraid to go outside of it, but I think the more you stay in it, the probably better off it's going to sound.
Who do you look up to as a singer in the punk rock industry?
I've looked up to a ton of singers. I mean, I grew up, you know, on minor.
In my opinion, you fall in that Jim Lindbergh category. A very accomplished singer, good stage presence, great lyrics, great texture on your voice. I mean, accomplished singers. You guys are accomplished singers.
Well, we're fortunate to be able to record in good studios and probably have some people that can help. You know, I don't know if we pull it off exactly the same live. I know we don't. There are, the bottom line is when you make a record, you're trying to do the best you absolutely can. So I'm going for it. Yeah. And I go for it live, it just doesn't come out the same. Yeah.
But let me let you answer that question before I cut you off.
I grew up listening, God, I mean, I couldn't pick one. I grew up listening to Thread, I idolized Ian, Milo, The Descendants. You know, The Descendants are probably the earlier melodic-y kind of sounding band.
Right.
You know, I've loved Joey from Lagwagon. I love Chris from Propaganda. I mean, there's singers I respect. There's musicians I respect. I grew up listening to Kiss and Ted Nugent and Queen. And,
see, now we're talking.
So, I mean, yeah, I grew up in all that classic kind of.
I love it.
That's where the harmony comes from.
I think that's probably why one of the biggest reasons I started my radio show was for that. You have been fortunate enough in Pulley and even in 10-Foot Pole to be on both sides of the spectrum with the music industry. And I wanted to ask you, how do you feel about the music industry now, being that when you started 10-Foot Pole and even in the newlywed stages of Pulley, there was no social media, there was no cell phones, it was all kind of word of mouth and flyers. And now, even with something like what I do with radio, it's with the way the world has changed, it's more indie in some aspect. You know, I was talking to Josh Todd from Buck Cherry. I had him on the show, and he had even told me, he goes, yeah, I've always kind of been sketchy about, you know, certain people hitting me up, I don't know where I'm going, you know, or this guy's running a podcast out of a garage or something, then he comes down and sees that we're an upscale station and, you know, we're doing it the right way. But you've been on both sides where you've seen it and you've had to build it without any help from social media, and it's been flyer, word of mouth, electronic downloading, and album sales aren't what they used to be, and bands are touring more than they've ever toured, and bands, even on a commercial level, are playing in different parts of the country that they typically wouldn't play in. Because why? Because that's how they're making their money this day and age. Whether it be, you know, No Effects going somewhere crazy, Pulley going somewhere, you know, Pennywise, Bad Religion, these bands that are, you know, that tour aggressively and maybe in some aspect don't want to go to certain places to play. But how do you feel about the way the music industry changed? Do you think it was for the better or was it for the worse?
I guess it would be two ways. You know, the bands that survived on that sort of setup, the bands that relied on that. They relied on an office upstairs that was, a PR department and everything that just did everything.
Mm-hmm.
I think it hurt them. I mean, it sucks for them. That's not to say they didn't evolve and start taking ownership for all their own stuff and doing the social media and everything else. I think for the new band now, for the high school kids that, go and record something on GarageBand, and next thing you know, it's being reviewed on some punk website, and multiples, and it's streaming for free, and the kids can hear it. I think it's awesome.
Very well put.
For us in particular, the way I see it is, I don't even recognize the music industry, to be honest with you. There's venues that hold concerts, total private business, and there's just independent bands that are out there basically doing it on their own now. I don't follow commercial music. I really haven't for, 30 some odd plus years. I enjoy record stores, but there's no reason for me to go into one.
Right.
I used to die. I used to collect my money and die to go to a store and buy something, because what was better than buying a record and opening it up and reading it as you're, listening to it. I died for that. I knew every single word on that front to back. But I don't care about that anymore.
Right.
It's been way oversaturated that, like, sometimes when I think about music, I almost get disgusted.
Yeah.
To be honest with you, it's like, I enjoy playing. I love playing live. I enjoy going to rehearsal and writing music with the guys and, that whole thing. But I don't know if being in a band's that cool anymore.
Right.
It's like, everybody's got a band.
Everybody's got a band.
And it's great because
Well,
it's music. And,
I'm just kidding.
you know what I'm saying? There's some shit bands out there, of course.
Yeah.
But there's some great bands out there you'd never known of 20 years ago.
Right.
That you know of now.
Right.
And, who's to say that, some of these obscure random bands that just come out of nowhere would have even been on the map.
Right.
And so, in that sense, it's been good.
Well, that's kind of what I say about hip hop too. I like a lot of old school hip hop, and I've said that I think if some of these rappers had to learn how to play an instrument, there'd be a lot less of them.
Yeah.
And I think that I'm kind of disgusted by a lot of the things in the music business too. With the studio albums, I know you are familiar with compilations. We don't see those anymore these days. Did you guys use the same engineer and the same studio for all the Pulley albums, or did you guys bounce? Because the texture and the sound and the production on, especially the most recent one that El Jefe put out on his label, great sounding album.
I think that has a lot to do with the times.
Yeah.
The last time we recorded a record was in 2004.
Yeah.
So I know technology constantly changes.
Sure.
So,
Yeah.
whether it's compression or whatever, songwriting, musicianship, just the whole ball of wax. We recorded the last few records with a guy named Matt Hyde. And earlier than that, we did with a guy named Ryan Green, who was recording a lot of Fat Record stuff and a few Epitaph bands. But we've done some compilations with some random studios locally around here. We've just submitted a song, and it got to a point where it all started to sound the same, no matter where you went. So that's how Pro Tools is great.
Exactly.
It just didn't matter. Recording in a room didn't matter anymore. We had to go to this room and record drums. Doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter anymore.
It does.
So.
Any musicians that you would like to collaborate with?
Collaborate with?
Maybe write a song with?
I don't know. I'm a big Dave Smalley fan. I don't know about collaborating. That'd be on him, but
Yeah.
There's a lot of people I'd like to jam with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How do you feel about the Warport coming doing it, and Kevin Lyman and what he's done for the music industry?
Good for Kevin, man.
Isn't he an amazing guy?
It's awesome what he did.
I
He
love
started
that guy.
out
Kevin,
with
if you're watching this, thank you for everything.
Yeah, it's great. What a great concept.
He's the best guy. I love that
He
guy.
worked his ass off and
Yeah.
put his ass out there in the line to do something good, and in the end it rewarded him too.
Absolutely.
And much deserving, because there's a lot of work put into that, and it was just it was summer camp for punk rock bands for 20 years.
Yeah.
It's just awesome. I'm glad we were able to do a part of that at that point and experience it, because it's like no other. I mean, it's a traveling circus, and it was fun.
And how you said earlier, how you made that call to Brett, when things were changing, and I remember coming up saying, oh man, I just got to get a hold of Kevin Lyman, and then I finally ended up, later in years, running into Kevin Lyman and shaking hands with him, and he's put my band on the Rob Zombie Great American Nightmare Tour, I think it was in Pomona, and he just put us on the It's Not Dead Festival.
Oh, cool.
And he didn't have us playing at 10 in the morning. I mean, and then I get there and he recognizes me and says hi, calls me by my first name. I mean, I pretty much accomplished everything I wanted to accomplish playing in a band.
Yeah.
I mean, that's it. And then the guys from Pennywise, being such, great guys to me. I met my wife at a Pennywise concert in 1997, and, I wanted to play and open up for Pennywise for so many years, and Jim and Fletcher finally gave me that opportunity last month.
Oh, awesome.
And those are things that, that they're kind of like a feather in my hat, and then coming down and sitting down with a guy like you and picking at your brain and talking music is, I really feel like I'm accomplishing some of the best things in my life, speaking to you guys and talking to you guys, because, like you said, the music industry has changed, and, you don't know if some people like playing in a band, or there's so many bands or whatnot, but with, what Kevin Lyman has done, and he's even switched the genres a little bit and made it user friendly for families, and parents are bringing they're coming out to the Warped Tour now with their kids. I mean, that's great.
Yeah.
That's great. Nobody else is doing anything like that.
Yeah.
Can you give me the current lineup of Pulley right now?
Well, it's myself singing, Mike Carter, guitar, Tyler plays bass, Chris, our drummer, and Jim plays the other guitar.
In the 90s, when Pulley came up, I mean, Guttermouth was firing on all cylinders. Pulley was firing on all cylinders, which you still are, which Guttermouth still is by any means. But wasn't that? But those Epitaph days, wasn't that a crazy time for music? I mean, Rancid, everybody was just on fire. I mean, Descendants.
Well, it was a good time to be on probably the best punk rock label that there has ever been.
Absolutely.
Number one. To have been around for a while, to have had established friendships with people that were finally starting to see success, and being able to ride some of their coattails,
right.
and get on some gigs here and there, and you know how that is, perception. Yeah. If you're playing on a No Effects gig, or you're playing on a Offspring gig, or a Rancid gig, it looks good.
Sure.
And if your name's on those flyers, that's how, to me, the word of mouth got around. I mean, I have a flyer collection still from my days of probably close to 2,000 flyers.
Right.
That was how you did it.
Sure.
Now people make books on it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, it was like, that to me was the biggest thing, is like getting your name on a flyer. People would be at a gig, at another gig, handing out your flyer.
Right.
And so, 3,000 people got to see that flyer as they're piling out of the, Avalon,
Sure.
or whatever the club was, at the time. And that's kind of what it was all about.
Well, it's funny because I used to make that joke about the Warped Tour. I says, hey, we don't even need to play the show. Just as long as our name's on the flyer, that's half the battle, right?
That's advertisement you
We don't even need to play, just put us on the flyer.
That means nothing tomorrow.
Right.
It used to have some meaning to it. It carried something for a while. Now it's like, what's next?
Right, well, that's like bands going in, and I was talking with Noodles from The Offspring about this, going in, recording singles or full albums, and I think for every band it's a little different, but I think if you were a band that came from that era, coming up when, the 10-Foot Pole days and the Epitaph days in the 90s, you're just kind of wired to go in and record a whole album. Punk rock and ska's always kind of had that built-in audience, so I think a lot of times if you go, out and you do an EP, it'll do well, but I think a lot of these guys, they go in, and probably same as for you, is you go in, you want to do a full record, and I know that it kind of goes, it's a little different with everybody, but what's your feeling on that? A single or full record, EP?
You know what? We've never been we've never sold some extreme amount of records. We've done really good in our genre and had success at our level for what we've put into it. I think the mentality is you can't distribute an EP.
Right.
You know,
That's a good point.
You gotta have a full length record.
That's a good point.
So a lot of bands a lot of the bigger type bands, you gotta put a full length out there, whether you make a few side songs and some EPs, whatever. But me personally, I think it'd be cool to record like handfuls of songs every year and just constantly keep them coming.
Sure.
You know, especially in my particular setup, you know, we don't have the time.
Yeah.
And so it's really cool to like, we bust out 2 or 3 songs.
Sure.
2 years later, bust out a year later, bust out another 2 or 3, and just keep that going. I would prefer that method because we're not distributing them, making them money. Where are they going? They're not being sold anywhere.
Exactly.
So fuck it, just record the songs, put them out, and
People like them, they like them.
yeah. And just keep the music coming instead of just one chunk and then have them forget about it. Like, we recorded a record, put out a record last year. I don't know when the next record will come out, but it's already forgotten. Now imagine if we had put out a few more songs and just keep everything going. And I think that's kind of ultimately what we'll end up having to do, and that's the goal.
Yeah, that's great, and I hope that Pulley continues, and I wish Pulley much success, and I hope there are a few more records, and can't wait to maybe get out and maybe even play some shows with you, but definitely at least be in the pit.
Yeah.
86, you're drafted to the White Sox. Is the way kids are drafted today the same as it was in 86?
Not even close.
No.
No way. Baseball's not even close. I mean, that's changing at such a rapid pace daily that it's really hard to be in it and keep up. Shit. There was nothing back then. There was a handful of scouts that would come to your game, and just some random phone call came to my mom's house. I knew nothing. And you kind of had a buzz. You kind of had a feeling, you know, if you were like good enough, and you know, some colleges were sending me these little information cards to fill out. I think a couple nights before the draft, I got a phone call at my house, and you know, this is pre-cell phone day. This is pre all that crap, pre-internet.
Bruce Jenner just won the Olympics.
There was no marketing yourself,
Right.
So yeah, I mean, buzz got around. Next thing you know, people started coming. I mean, this is my senior year in high school. Kids are fully committed to D1 schools now. They're sophomore years in high school, so times are completely different.
Sure.
The draft was just a simple, hey, we drafted you in the 3rd round. Here's what you got. That's it.
Wow.
And now, I mean, it's like, you know, going in, you know what you're projected, you almost know the team that's going to get you. You almost know the money that's projected for your slot. You've been going to these showcases since you were probably 15, you know, all over the states, country, wherever. You've probably made handfuls of videos of yourself fielding, hitting, throwing, doing whatever you do. That's what these kids do.
Right.
And so it's changed drastically.
How's it?
It literally has gone from like the dark ages to where props to the scouts, because I don't think scouts have a tremendous responsibility, and their job is to always find that diamond in the rough, but it's a lot easier now you got to weed yourself through probably a lot more shit now than you did back in the day, because back in the day you went and saw one guy stood out, you watched him, you wrote his name down, you followed him. Now you might have to look at 300 guys on a video to weed them all out to find one guy, but I think you have more access. So you should have better luck at finding, but at the same time, so does the guy that lives on the East Coast that would never have stepped foot on the East Coast. So it's changed dramatically. If that answers your question.
No, it does. And that brings me to my next question is, I was going to ask you, so you've had affiliation with the Indians, Cardinals, Dodgers, White Sox, and Anaheim Angels. As you notice, I said Anaheim, not LA.
Yeah. We're the California Angels.
California Angels.
We're the California Angels. Most people look for one break in life, whether to become a professional athlete or to become a rock star, and you've essentially been signed twice. How does that make you feel? I mean, that's a huge accomplishment. I mean, and mad love to you for that, because that's killer. Yeah, I appreciate that.
You know?
blessed.
You're very humble. You're
totally blessed.
You're
But
totally
you know,
a grounded dude, and that's probably that's the punk rock side of you that keeps you like that.
for sure.
You know?
For sure. I've spent the last 25 years.
Because I mean, you really don't need to be sitting here with me.
I
Right?
spent the last 25 years for 8 months of the year traveling first class on a private plane,
Sure.
sleeping in a Marriott hotel, to literally weeks later, sleeping on the floor somewhere in, Poland, driving in a van, shitting wherever you can, eating wherever you can, just living like a total punk rock would on tour
Wow.
in the early days.
Sure.
So, yeah, that's definitely kept me grounded.
Sure.
And I'm kind of steering away from the original, what you were asking me.
No, it's okay.
But I'm kind of lost. Where were we?
Well, I was basically just kind of. Well, we'll just go back to it later.
Well, you were saying blessed.
You got
Yes,
signed
I am-
twice.
I
You
am
got signed
blessed.
twice.
I'm blessed, and yes, blessed and
Yeah.
fortunate, and I don't take anything for granted. Fuck, man. I had to go through cancer at 26
Wow.
years old. I had to go through 6 months of chemo, 5 weeks of radiation. Okay, I'm fortunate for that.
Wow.
Way more than being a baseball player.
Absolutely.
2 years ago, out of nowhere, because 22 years ago, the radiation clipped a couple arteries. I'd been living for 10 years with 2 shut down arteries and had to have a open heart bypass surgery.
I remember reading about it.
47 years old. So I'm way more fortunate than that than being able to sign with Epitaph.
Yeah.
I've been married for 26 years. And being a married guy, I'm sure you know that I'm blessed for that too.
Absolutely.
So just believe in what you do, man, and don't have expectations so ridiculously far-fetched that it's not realistic. And stay humble.
Stay humble.
Stay humble.
Is there anybody else in professional baseball or maybe any other professional sports that we need to keep an eye out that are doing what you do, that have a side project kind of, or singing a punk rock band, or not that you're
They're never happening.
how does it go over with the team?
The abuse that I took.
Will we ever see Mike Trout in the pit at a Pulley show?
But like Mike Piazza was one of the
Mike Piazza's a
okay,
big metalhead,
okay,
right?
He's around. He asked me for a CD at one point.
Oh, really?
For the steam driven. I was with the Dodgers
Yeah.
at the time, and
Yeah.
the shit was blowing up.
Right.
Give me one of those CDs. No, the abuse I took when I first, going back to 1986, here I am coming from California, I'm out in Florida, and it's just all these hicks and guys listen to country and classic rock. And I was just shaved head wearing Converse. People really looked at me weird. I had Vans. You walk into a locker room today, I feel like this, and I'm not personally responsible, but I know I was part of a group of individuals at one point in their life that were hated on, that made it to where people that have no idea who Steve Van Duran even is are walking around in a pair of Vans in the Anaheim locker room.
Yeah.
Guaranteed. Or around Major League Baseball. Or they're listening to bands that, hey, this is pretty cool. The Foo Fighters, or bands that, they don't even know where the shit originated from.
Right,
Like,
that's true.
Dave Grohl played in Scream. So
Chris Cornell played in a rockabilly band.
it just goes on.
Yeah.
And that's where I was in the mid-80s.
Yeah.
And I always like to try to tell my mom that society finally caught up, man.
Yeah.
And now listen to what you hear on the radio in regular stores. Where would you would never hear some of the music that's played now.
No, and that brings me back to why I do the radio show that I do. Because I believe in the music and I want it to be heard. Whether it's obscure punk rock music that would never get played on terrestrial radio, or whether it was great music that was played on terrestrial radio back in the 70s or 80s, I still
That's
think
awesome.
that music still to this day stands the test of time, and it's some of the best music ever written. In my opinion, I don't think there is any more Jimi Hendrix. I don't think there is any more Led Zeppelins or Ozzy's or Lemmys. And that's on the commercial side of things. Is there any more Kurt Cobains or Chris Cornells? I mean, I did a whole thing on Chris Cornell when he passed away. I put Chris Cornell up there with Freddie Mercury. I mean, that's a singer, you know what I'm saying? And so, but you're absolutely right. A lot of these people don't, like Foo Fighters, for instance. I mean, Pat Schmear, being from the Germs. Nobody even knows that,
Right.
And it's crazy.
Well, Chris Shiflett played in the band.
Chris Shiflett, and he's in the Foo Fighters.
So I just use him as an example. There's
No,
a lot
great
of those,
example.
There's a lot of those examples.
Yeah.
And so I get a kick out of it. And
Yeah.
I just walk around and I look down. Oh, got some bands on. I'm like, laugh to myself.
Yeah.
I know you've never been on a skateboard. And I know you don't have any idea. It's just
Right,
a thing. And
right.
we took the shit
Yeah.
through the years to make that now
Absolutely.
the norm.
Yeah, that's
You know?
true.
And so I'm proud of that. That's the one thing I'm proud of. You know, when I look back and I say, like, being a punk rock person,
Yeah.
that's the one thing that I'm proud of is the music that's accepted nowadays and tolerated. You know, the fashion, just the whole kind of, I'm proud to say, well, I've been doing that my whole life.
Yeah. Kick ass.
You Johnny come lately, but I don't say that, but I know inside
You
I
know
feel
what's up,
secure,
yeah.
you know?
With Pulley, do you prefer touring or one-offs these days?
You know, we get a lot of great offers, and it would be awesome to go do some sort of touring. But 4 of the 5 guys have kids. 5 of the 5 guys have full-time jobs, houses. We've done it, man. And, you know, unfortunately, we didn't get to do it when times were as good probably as it could have been.
Right.
And it's just financially, it's really hard to say, you know, you're approaching 50 years old and you got, you know, a couple kids and a wife, and it's like, you can't just leave your job for a few
Yeah.
weeks to go have fun.
Right.
And there's no guarantee what you're gonna come home with.
Exactly.
So,
The one-offs.
there's nothing better than touring.
Yeah.
But we're in a situation where we try to, you know, string together some weekends here and there, but that's the best it gets, you know.
In your off season for the Angels, how much time do you really get off?
A little over 4 months.
So I mean, and you want to spend that
That's all
not
the baseball.
on the road with
I did it my whole life.
a band
I
playing,
mean,
you know, punk
I've
shows.
played eight. My buddies that would go on tour full time, and I would laugh because, like I was telling you earlier, like spring training starts soon.
Right.
Normally, I would be packing all my suitcases, and I'm leaving LAX, and I'm not coming home until the season's over. That's 8 months. So I've been on tour for 8 months. And I hear guys bitching about being on tour for 40 days or whatever, and I got 2 months off, now we gotta go back on the road again. And I'd laugh, going, dude, I'm still on tour. And then I get done, and the first thing we do is go on tour.
Yeah.
So I bet you there was quite a few handfuls of years there where I was probably on the road 10 to 11 months
Yeah.
constant.
Quite a bit.
And so it was fun,
Yeah.
but it's weird, man.
96 to 98, you're with the Dodgers. Pulley comes to surface in 94. When the Dodgers call came, and Pulley was pretty much riding high at that time, were you in any record contracts or anything with Pulley that might have eliminated you to fulfill because you had obligations to the Dodgers or vice versa?
No.
No, so you were pretty much
my,
free.
My only dealings with anybody was with Brett Gurewitz
Yeah.
of Epitaph, and it would just be a phone call. Well, I mean, you kind of know that what our situation is, but he was like, because you don't have to tour. And he kind of had the foresight somewhere around 95, 96 of realizing like, well, yeah, you guys will be fine. Just put out a good record. We'll have enough snowboarding, surfing compilations to get the word out there. Go out and play your handful of shows, but don't worry about beating the pavement for 8 months. You don't have to do that to sell records.
God bless.
And so once we got that from him, it just became fun. You know, I mean, for us, being in a band was always about being fun, having fun, going out and having a good time with your buddies and playing a show, and that's what it is to me.
Yeah.
I've never known any different, thank God.
Yeah. A couple other questions and I'll get out of here.
Because I'll keep rambling if you don't get out of here. Your
I
driver's
was-
going to be pissed.
I'm wondering what time the skate park's opening up. I did bring a board. No. Do you ever get bored? You ever just chill? You ever just dick off on your phone and just walk around the house with nothing to do, or you always got something going on?
I
Netflix?
love the thought of being bored.
Right.
Unfortunately, you know, and my mom always jokes, and I was probably one of those kids back in the day that would have been medicated,
Right.
you know, bouncing all over the walls.
Sure.
I was quite a handful until I got old enough to where I could occupy my own time. And because of my schedule and because of the way things have been, you know, my lifestyle, you know, the band, it's load in at 2, 3 o'clock,
Sure.
do a sound check, play a gig, go to the next city.
Right.
With the baseball team, it's been, you know, take your suitcase, hang it up, 3 days, you're done. I've never been in the same place long enough
To be bored.
to get bored.
Yeah.
I come home during the winter, and you know, I've been fortunate to have a band and always stay busy. I had this for the last 20 years. I have 3 kids, so life keeps me going. I don't know how to sit and relax, and maybe that's gonna affect my health at some point in life. Who knows? I'm not saying I'm living to the fullest and I'm wearing myself down. I feel great, man. I get rest, I take care of myself, I eat good, I'm in good shape. You know, I've had a few hiccups along the way, and I have to go through some bullshit in life. And I think, you know, with everything that's good comes some bad. It's a balance, you know. So for all of us, we're all even.
And you're a proven example of that.
That's all I'm saying. It's
Yeah.
like it's just even. You know,
Yeah,
nobody's
makes a lot of
greater
sense,
than the
yeah.
other. But yeah, I mean, I do envision there is a day. I have this great record collection, and I envision myself one day just having these lazy days where I'm just like spinning records in the house, and looking at my flyers and reading my old Maximum Rock and Rolls and flip sides, because I have all that still in my
Oh,
place.
I'd love to see that.
And yeah, but I don't know if that's going to happen.
With the Dodgers go to the World Series last season, how'd you feel about that? Anything you would have done different?
As far as if I was like with some input and what we would have done?
Yeah.
You know, I'm a huge Dave Roberts fan. Me and Dave played together in Cleveland. You know, you can't sit and point the finger at any one individual. But there is a lot of question when you look how the game kind of transpired that game. So the game before that was probably one of the most insane. I don't watch baseball as a whole. It's on the TV and I'm flipping through it. And occasionally keep an eye on it, you know, when the series is going on. And there was I don't know what inning it was, but I think it was that game before. I was blown away. It was just like home run. They came back, another home run. I was like, wow, there's going to be a game 7. How insane.
Right.
Well, right away, my kid looks at me, yeah, Kershaw's going to start. Hell yeah, he is, dude. There's no way he's not. And I was kind of shocked at that,
So was that
especially since he came in. And you know, just let me elaborate a little bit. You know, in baseball, you know, I've been on the player development side and I've been on the big league side. Player development is, we're here to develop, man. I will lose a game today in Buffalo to make you better so that you can go have a career at the major league level. That's part of the sacrifice. At the big league level, it's what shot do you need, where do you need it, where do you need it, what can I do to get you on that field right now to help us win the game. So I understand the two different sides of it, and that's where I was kind of thought to myself, like, well, I guarantee you, from what I know, that guy wanted to pitch. That I can guarantee. He probably did everything and called every single person, all the way up to the top of the ownership, to say, I want this game. Let me ask you this. When you work and you go to spring training on February 12th, February 13th, your first day is the 14th, and you start that journey, you start that competitive season, you start that championship season, who do you want on the mound for your last game? Who do you want? Same guy I want.
Sure.
So I'll just leave it at that. Do I have any question? Will they do that? Let's see what happens next year. If we've got a guy in a day rest, let him go game 7. You're losing with your best. And that's why he was the first guy in there. He went and did what he did. And being around that's a whole nother human. That guy's on a level that none of us can even comprehend.
Right.
He is mentally and physically put himself in a place to be the best there is. And he's going to carry that for as long as health will allow him.
Sure.
And I can speak for the competitiveness of wanting the ball. I know damn well that guy won.
Yeah.
And they all know that.
Yeah.
You know, but you're protecting people too. You're protecting assets and you're protecting, valuable commodities there. And it's like, I'm not going to lose one game and win one. I'd rather have you pitch for me than to blow your life. But you can go in and win it.
Yeah.
And there's no guarantees. That's why I came back from a surgery in '88 and I was kind of holding back, and I had one of the best coaches.
Was your elbow?
My shoulder.
Your shoulder.
And a coach said to me, well, if you're not going to go balls to the wall, 110% and live up to your California attitude, you'll never make it. And from that minute on, I don't think I had a shit game in the minor leagues for the next year. That was it. I went to the big leagues right away.
Crazy.
But I believe in that.
Yeah. It's well put, and I think we all agree with you on that. One of the worst things that's ever happened to you?
Well, fuck. Getting cancer, had gone through over
I think that's got to probably be the scariest.
Watching my
the
dad,
cancer's got to probably be.
my dad dying at 16 was probably the worst thing that ever
Sure.
happened.
One of the best things that's happened to you. Sitting
Yeah.
here with me.
Yeah, sitting here with you. I mean, I not to be cliche, but 3 kids. And
Yeah,
beautiful
absolutely.
family. I mean, that's That's probably the best thing. That's going to be there after everything else is gone. So that's
Anything I left out? Anything else you'd like to elaborate on or plug?
no, man. You know, I appreciate you being prepared and allowing me to be able to communicate with you easy, because it's hard sometimes talking to people because there isn't a good balance.
So do I get an A?
You get an A, man.
Thanks, man.
I appreciate it.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, Scott Radinsky on The Music Show. Thanks for tuning in. Scott, thank you so very much. This means the world to me.
Thank you.
Skatelab, Simi Valley. Get out here if you skate, or if you just want to come out and check out all the memorabilia. It's a great place. Again, I can't thank you enough from the bottom of my heart. This is really a highlight of my career, and I really just mean it. Thank you so very much. We'll see you guys next time.
See ya.